In this video, I'm going to show you how to add on a title block onto a layout and also how to set up a layout and move viewports around. I know a lot of times people want to go and set up a sheet in AutoCAD, but they get a little confused as how the viewport works or how to put them on there. So this is actually a very simple step. First thing, of course, you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to one of your layouts. It's down at the bottom of the screen. I'm just going to go to my layout 1. And the issue is that it is in a template, in just a plain template, it's set up as 8.5 by 11. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that our sheet is the correct size. So all you really need to do is on top of where it says Layout 1 on your tab, you're going to do a right click, and you're going to click on Page Setup Manager. Once that comes up, you're going to have a dialog box that comes up. Now, like I said, this is for if you're not using a template and you're just setting things up for the first time. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a page setup. So I'm going to click on New, and I'm going to actually name this a specific size so that next time when I go to do this, it's going to be really easy. And in this particular case, I'm going to use an NCD size sheet. So NCD should be enough. And I'm going to tell it OK. From here, actually, forgot about you need to do an underscore, not a space. It doesn't like. Had an extra space in there, didn't realize it. Shouldn't have any spaces in it at all. It can only has to be underscores. So from there, now we've got this thing set up, and usually what I'll do is when I refer to the printer, I'll make sure I change it to something that has a lot of sizes in it. And a lot of times, either the Adobe PDF or some type of PDF writer is usually the easiest way to go because there's a broad range of sizes in there. So I'm going to click on DWG to PDF. And now it's going to set it up, and this is Autodesk own PDF setup that they have. I'm going to go to paper size, and I'm going to scroll down until I actually see NCD, either 34 by 22 or 22 by 34. And to be quite honest with you, it really doesn't matter which one you use because you have control over how it shows and prints on your screen. So as you can see now, I have a 22 by 34 sheet. It's asking me what I want to plot, meaning what on this screen that you're going to be working off of do you want to plot. And if you're going through the trouble of setting something up in a tab form or in the layout, you want to tell it to print the layout. The other thing you also want to do is you want to make sure that your X and Y is set to 0. That way everything lines up properly on the sheet. There's no type of offset or anything like that. And I also keep my scale at 1:1. Control your scale through your viewport. Don't try not. Only time I change my scaling when it comes to printing something is if by chance someone asked me to print something at half scale for them, and they wanted me to do it really quick. This is one way to do it. Or if I didn't have a layout already set up for this. But a lot of times, like I said, I just keep it at 1:1. For drawing orientation, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be using a landscape orientation, which is why the 22 by 34 part really doesn't matter in this particular case. And when it comes to the plot options, usually I leave those alone. I don't want to worry about changing any plot styles, object line weights, anything like that, because that stuff can be controlled somewhere else. So if I want, a lot of times I will do a preview just to make sure everything's set up properly, which in this particular case it is. I don't have my title block brought into this file yet, so this worked. And all I have to do now is I'm just going to hit the circle with the X, which is an exit, and close out of that. And I'm going to tell this OK. As far as the pin tables, I'm actually going to set that up another time. So I'm going to leave those alone, and I'm going to tell us OK at this point. Now that it's set to NCD, I need to make sure that I tell it to set current. And you'll notice that it changed in the background, and tell it close. And that's just as simple as that. You've got your size of your sheet ready now to receive your title block. So let's go from here. Let's do that. Now that we have our page set up to the size that we want it to be, we now want to bring in our title block. Now, If you have not set up your title block before, I can show you how to set up a title block on another video. But in this case, we're going to act like we already have one created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull the title block in. And actually, since I've already pulled this in, it's going to ask me to do something different, but that's okay. I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to click on More Options. This is Insert right above Block here. And I'm going to click on More Options, and it's going to bring up the old Insert Block dialog box. From here, I'm going to actually browse, and I'm going to find my D-size title block that I already have for my project. I'm going to click on it. It's going to tell me Open. From here, there's a few things that you need to pay attention to. It's asking about the insertion point, the scale, the rotation. A few other things, but those are the main ones. Usually when it comes to putting something in paper space, almost always you have to go ahead and put it in as clicking on and specifying on screen. Can't use the 000. When it comes to the scale, your title block is the size that it should be. It's 22 by 34. There's no scaling that we need to do to make this thing the correct size. So there's no need to change its scale, so I usually set that up as 1, 1, and 1, so 1 to 1. When I ask about a rotation, because we're not doing any type of special sheet or maybe a portrait oriented sheet, landscape is fine. There's no need for a rotation, so you leave that at 0. So now after I do this, I'm going to go ahead and tell this okay. Now it's asking me if I want to redefine it. I'm going to say yes, simply because I've actually brought this in before, but this error is not going to come up on yours. So now that you've got it set up, you now need to, and this is one thing that's I've always found very, very interesting when it comes to the way that paper space is set up in AutoCAD. You want to make sure you are as close to that line of 0, 0 as possible, or the bottom left corner of your sheet. And if you need to, don't be afraid to zoom in and get that as close as can be. Once you get it in there and you feel like you have it on the sheet the way that it needs to be, go ahead and click. After you do that, and you'll notice I zoomed out, I now have my sheet on my paper space. So the very last thing that we need to do is we need to set up our viewport. And we already have a viewport that's set up in here. Let's just go ahead and work with that one. One of the first things I do is I usually take my viewport, I click on it. I don't double click, I do a single click. I use my move tool, which is Enter, and I usually like to get it centered onto the screen. This is especially if you're going to be doing one drawing on a screen. Now, obviously, the drawing that I'm using is a longer orientation, so I might want to consider maybe rotating my viewport or something like that, but we're not going to worry about that for right now. We're just going to work with it the way that it is. And then what I will also do is I will click back on my viewport and I will expand it as much as I can inside of my print margins. And we're just going to do something like this for right now. It could go all the way. It could just go just a little bit. It all depends on what you're trying to show. Now from here, now that I've got that set up, I'm going to double click inside of here and I'm going to change the scale. You'll notice when I double click, it now looks like there's a solid thick line around my viewport. I've gone into model space. And the other way you know is if you look down here at the bottom of the screen, it says model. So I'm going to change this to a scale that I think works. And we're going to start out at 1/4. And you'll notice when you start out at 1/4, it scales it up and take to that right size. If you want to get it centered, make sure you're doing a pan and not a scale, and try to get this as centered as possible. Obviously, 1/4 doesn't work for me, so I think I'm going to go and change it. Let's try a 3/16. I may be able to get the full entire drawing. There we go. On this sheet, my advice to you, once you get your scale how you want it, once you get your view how you want it, come down here to the bottom next to your viewport and lock it in place. That way, as you zoom in, zoom out, you don't accidentally scale your item. When you're finished with that, all you have to do is either click down here where it says model, or you can type in paper space, which is PSPACE, and enter. And then you're now ready to print your file off or print your drawing off either as a PDF or to actually go to some type of printer/plotter. Thank you.